ago, years almost to the day, because Silver Spring had silver. And interestingly, I was still talking to the same gentleman, I think, running the club. But those kind of stories do exist, and Kyle's right. I mean, landowners, their family conditions, their family situations change over time. And so it's not uncommon, as different generations, come into the conversation about the future of land and that kind of thing, that sentiments change. And so, yes, a no today can certainly be a yes at some point in the future.
But as I understand it, a yes now cannot become a no in the future because most of these programs are set up into perpetuity, correct? So
these things put in place, it is in perpetuity.
Right. So
it's not a real yes until you settle. I mean,
correct. Yeah. But once it's a real yes, then okay.
And is it fair? I mean, if there's 1,500 acres, I don't think we'd ever get all of that. But have you looked at it in terms of what we could possibly get? I mean, is it fair to say we could possibly get half of that amount, or 1,000 acres, or is that just too outside the realm of crystal ball or fate or whatever?
I mean, you can talk, but there's no way to know, because it would be, if you just had to buy it today, it would take millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So you can't get all of it today. And then how much of it you get interacts with, like we already said, with the landowners, with time. There are so many unknowns about how our world is evolving. You don't know how land use is going to change over the next 5-10 years. And so I'd be very reticent to try to give you a percentage.
I would say, good conservation is like anything else. I mean, you're going to enter into comprehensive planning, thinking strategically about the long-term, situation in the township. What lands are most important to you based on what your citizens value is going to be an important part of that conversation. And then good conservation planning would say those lands are these, and these would be our top priorities. It may be lands along the yellow breaches. It may be important farmland. It may be trail connectors and other things. It may be all of those things. But until you know kind of what is it that your citizenry really cares about, and you have kind of planned for, then you can start going out and figuring out, what landowners are interested. And, just like we approach our work, we start reaching out to the landowners that are in those highest priority places and, seeing if we can get conservation deals done.
Yeah, and I would add as well that even if you had all the money in the world, you don't have all of the people and time in the world either to allocate to those individual projects of acquiring those parcels. And so there's always a discrete, there's scarcity at many different levels for doing these jobs. And that's why, like Todd's saying, you have your priorities and those things, those can change. I mean, we've seen the way that people interact with, whether it's about conservation easements or acquiring land in fee or focusing on trails. As trails become more and more popular, is that what you focus your outreach on? When you try to do a long trail, that's a lot of different landowners to do outreach to get all on the same page, to do deals with. And each one of those deals for a small amount of acreage still takes close to the same amount of time as any other deal. And so if that ends up being the job, you wouldn't have a lot of acres necessarily, but you might have a robust trail network, and that could also be something that's valuable to the township.
And then in some of our earlier conversations, I think it's either Todd or Kyle mentioned, like during the 1990s, they were losing one farm a day in Chester County or some of the suburban Philadelphia counties. And I just drew that's also the area where the most referendums have passed, and they're very popular. And I don't know how much of a parallel it is to the growth of the Harrisburg, region and affecting our township, that you then get the questions about, when or are we ever going to be able to save any land from development? And I guess that's why we're here. But I wanted to ask you, and what happens with, you're in this like really desirable development area and the land is probably pretty rapidly escalating in value. Do you have any sense of what we may be looking at in terms of per acre for a conservation easement?
No, I wouldn't
Okay.
want to give that kind of
Okay.
number. I mean, that's the the trap of everybody in our
Okay.
business is to answer that question. No,
Okay.
I don't have a number for that. Obviously, values go up. But like I said, the real goal in any kind of project is to be able to pair township, county, state, every funding source you can, to be able to run that up the line and make your township money stretch further. If every deal you do is just you, then you're doing the least efficient version of conservation at the local level. If you can be conserving land that your county and your state have also identified as being really important for conservation, then for every dollar that you bring in from your residents, you could be getting $3 or $4 in funding from elsewhere. And that's really the kind of the goal.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? We've talked a lot about EIT being the source of funding. Is that what you primarily use? Is that our only option? Are there other tax options available to bring this money in? Understanding that it would still have to be done through referendum.
Yeah, I understand. The answer is yes and no. Yes, it's the most common one that gets passed. But no, it's not the only option. You can also, you can pass an EIT. You can raise property taxes, so increase the millage. You could do a blend of the two. You could just do a bond. There's a lot of different options for what you do. Obviously, the EIT is the most common one. It alleviates the pressure on those on fixed incomes from having to have their taxes go up when they do not have the wiggle room necessary potentially that other people have. So many townships choose EITs for that reason. But in some townships that have a really strong commercial sector, by doing a property tax, you can be leveraging that sector to pay for open space for the residents. And so it's really case specific whether it's going to be right for the township.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Very welcome.
I think we'll move on to Stephanie.
Just the base, hit the base, there, if it turns green, you're on.
Okay, I was struggling to figure out how I was gonna hold a mic and a clicker and my notes, and I apologize for having my back to you. I'll do my best
Mike's very clear.
to be able to address everybody. But thank you for having me. I'm Steph Williams with the Cumberland County Planning Department. Within the department, I manage the county's farmland preservation program. I also work with municipalities and nonprofits on conservation and recreation issues. Pleased to be here tonight to share some information to, inform this discussion about a potential open space referendum. A little bit about what I plan to chat about today, talk a little bit about how an open space program might fit into county policy, talk about some of the benefits of open space preservation, provide some relevant data about growth in the township, access to parks in the township, and loss in the farmland generally countywide. And then lastly, talk about some opportunities that I see for the township should this referendum move forward. So first, the concept of an open space referendum is supported by a host of county planning policies. I'm not going to dig into the specifics of each of these for sure, but overall, each of these policy documents have some aspect of them that encourages preservation of land, whether it be for outdoor recreation, environmental protection, climate mitigation, flood control. Land preservation is supported in all of these county planning documents. I also wanted to talk a little bit about some public outreach that we did that would help inform your process. So in 2023, 2024, we were in the process of updating our land partnerships plan. which focuses on conservation and recreation. So we did a public opinion survey, we did public forums, we did focus groups, we did key person interviews. We talked to, I'd say, over 1,500 people in the course of all these things. And these are some of the things that we heard. We heard that the Farmland Preservation Program is a great success at the county, so keep up the good work. We heard that there is a need to accelerate open space preservation because development is just happening too fast. We heard that there was a need for more publicly accessible green space. So people like conservation needs, but they like to be able to go places too. And lastly, there was a need for more trails, particularly trails that connect people with destinations. We all love to go to the park and, kind of walk around the community, but it's also be able to get to some places. And so while these results might be countywide, I think they're very applicable to Upper Allen Township because Upper Allen was one of the biggest survey respondents too. So I wanted to move into a little bit of discussion about why open space is important. From a farmland preservation perspective, it does benefit the landowner, but it has benefit to the community as a whole. Farmland preservation helps ensure food security. Agriculture is a fundamental sector of our society. We all eat, we all need food. So it's important that we have that farmland available. Well-managed farms can benefit the environment. They provide groundwater recharge, wildlife habitat. Farmland preservation supports tourism, preserves our rural heritage, scenic beauty. Farmland preservation and open spaces also have, or should say farms and open spaces also have a low cost of public services. So the demand for public services on farms is significantly less than like housing developments, for example. Thinking about the benefits of open space preservation, like natural areas, meadows, woodlands, riparian areas, they help provide us with clean water, fresh air, healthy wildlife populations, again, groundwater recharge, flood control, and can mitigate the impacts of climate change. The map that is on this slide is from one of our county planning efforts, which highlights priority conservation areas. And those are areas that are most important for environmental protection. So we'd be happy to share this data with the township. It is very much similar to the priority conservation areas or primary conservation areas. I think that was on Natural Lands map. So very, very similar. Lastly, thinking about parks and trails, they're very important for our health and well-being. They provide opportunities for go out and recreate, be physically active, improve our mental well-being. Outdoor recreation is also important for economic development. Maybe we don't think of it, but in 2024, outdoor recreation contributed $1.5 billion to our statewide economy. It's big business, so having access to outdoor recreation is important. Businesses want to locate in places with ample access to parks and trails, so people will want to come to this community. Recreation amenities can enhance local property values and increase buyer demand. Properties close to parks sell for a little bit more and a little bit faster. And just overall, they contribute to the quality of life of this community. So move into a bit about some data and trends that, again, can inform the need for land preservation to balance growth pressures. So Cumberland County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. At the county level, the population is growing about a pace of about 10% per year. The next 20, 30 years, it's expected to continue about the same. So growth pressures aren't letting up. And Upper Allen is growing even faster than the county as a whole, almost triple that of the county. So in the last decade, the township grew by about 28.4%. So significant growth in this area. With population growth, it comes an increase of demand for parks, trails, and open space. So this is a study that was put together in 2019 by the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and the Trust for Public Land, and basically documenting access to parks, trails, and open space. So the green and the yellow areas, they either have access or they have a lower need, but the areas of orange and red in this community are of medium and high need. So there are places in the township where there's not the same access to parks, trails, and open space. The township has done a good job of providing a lot of great parkland, but there's some places where people don't have access. So the potential to use open space funds to acquire more parks, to build trails that connect, would be of value to the residents. Loss of farmland. So unfortunately, Cumberland County has seen a record loss of farmland. And this chart reflects data from the Census of Ag. The county started experience significant farmland loss way back in the 1930s and 40s. And it's been basically a downward trend since then. The most recent census, when we compared, we showed a 23,000 acre loss of farmland, which is about 14% of the farmland was lost in the last reporting period. And sadly, we rank in the top in Pennsylvania of loss in farmland. It's Center County, Cumberland County, and Bradford County. They lead the way in loss of farmland. So managing Cumberland County's economic growth with, again, that recognition that agriculture is vital to our industry, it sustains human life, it is a challenge. And, having tools to protect them is really important. So thinking about what are the opportunities that lie ahead? So the open space program could bring many opportunities. The township could become a partner with the Cumberland County Farmland Preservation Program. A dedicated funding stream positions the township to leverage additional funds, and it presents opportunities to collaborate with our nonprofit organizations. And I'll talk a little bit about those in a little bit more. So partnering with Cumberland County on farmland preservation, what does that mean? I like to think we have a very successful program. We've preserved about 235 farms, almost 26,000 acres of farmland, and we have a goal of getting to 30,000 acres by 2030. I'm confident we're going to get there. We're working really hard. This year, we had a record amount of $5 million of funding to go towards the program. We have done some work in Upper Island Township. The little red circle over there towards the right is the township and where we have preserved farmland. So we preserved 6 properties, almost 500 acres through the county state program. And there's still more opportunities out there in the northwest corner of the township to partner on. And, thinking how does this program work for people that aren't familiar with conservation easements, landowners are paid to put restrictions on their property. It must continue as working farmland using this conservation easement. And a conservation easement is a voluntary legal agreement which limits the use of the property. And I want to emphasize that it's voluntary. As I would imagine with any program, you're working only with people that are interested in working with you. The restrictions in the easement are permanent and transfer from landowner to landowner, and the use of that property is then monitored by the county. So we go out every year, make sure people are continuing to uphold the terms of that easement. We made a big investment in the property, and we want to make sure that it's still an ag. So what is the partnership advantage? I mean, there's advantages with partnering with the county. So the county program guidelines that we have allow us to prioritize farms and municipalities that are ready to cost share. So if the township would have a fund that would be available and we can go 50-50 on the cost, we can take farms out of ranking order. So we can bump you up to the top of the list if the township is willing to help preserve the farm. We have done this in several municipalities. Silver Spring, most notably, we've worked multiple times with, but we worked with East Pennsboro Township recently to preserve the last farm in their municipality, unfortunately. We worked with South Middleton many years ago. They had an iconic farm that they wanted to see preserved, so we worked with them to preserve it. So it's really a great partnership. I think it's a win-win for everybody. This was Kyle talked about it a little bit, but leveraging open space funds to maximize investment. So the dedicated funding stream positions you to apply for a lot of grants to maximize your money. Maybe you can take that $900,000 and double it. There's so many grant programs out there. They require maybe a 50-50 match from the feds to the state to the county, and there's a lot more. So yes, the money that you come in is just the starting point. Hopefully you can double it to get more work done. And also, I would say it's an opportunity to work with other like-minded organizations. There is a lot of great nonprofits and community organizations in this area. And so those organizations can help lend capacity to you. Because again, as was mentioned, if you were, dropped $10 million, you don't have the resources to probably make it all happen. So there's a lot of nonprofits out there to help you get things done. And so there's an opportunity to collaborate with partners. And so in summary, the last I would say is that the concept of an open space program is consistent with county policy. The benefits of the open space program are well documented. Support for land preservation is well documented. Growth and development needs to be balanced with land preservation to keep the quality of life that you have and make it even better. And lastly, this open space program has a lot of promising opportunity.
Steph,
Sure.
is it possible to get a copy of your slide deck?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe
Sure.
you can give it to Keldine and you guys too, Kyle, if you would. Oh, we do. Okay.
Yep.
So there are board member questions.
Sure. Well, we're here to help. So if you have more questions, feel free to follow up. Or if you think of more, I'm happy to answer them.
So I have one at least.
Okay.
I think I've been told, like you mentioned, the trail access, connecting and all that being very important, which I also see it as important. I believe if there's a conservation easement on a farm, you cannot put a trail easement across it.
So with the county state farmland preservation program, trails are not permitted by right. We have permitted them in very limited circumstances through our program when it was demonstrated that there was no impact to the farm operation. So an example, we have the Latort Trail up in the Carlisle area. The property includes an abandoned rail bed. So the rail bed is there. It's not being farmed. It can't be farmed without an extensive amount of rehab. And then there was, the ballast and all that in place. So we allowed it as a rural enterprise under the category of ag tourism. So it is a very specific case-by-case basis where a trail would be allowed through a county state program. If it was a conservation easement, it would all depend outside of our program. It would all depend on whatever rules were written into those easement restrictions.
I'll use a specific example. In a way, I don't necessarily want to name them, but it would be like the Strock Farm, or one of the Strock farms that's next to Canterbury development, in between like Fisher Park, and then goes down to Stumpstown Road, and there's the Trout Run Nature Preserve there. So if they were willing to participate in the program, I'm just trying to think how you would structure that. Should you try to buy a strip of land like in fee or something along the development to get down there? Is that better held like by the township than as part of a conservation easement?
When the county is working on preserving farmland, we do our best to try to think of all the things that might be out there that might be in conflict with the easement. So we have at times excluded land from an easement where we knew it was a potential trail corridor. So we preserved a farm up along the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail. We knew that at some point in time, we hoped the trail would go through there. So we excluded that land. So we certainly do our best to think about how we can exclude, avoid potential conflicts. So if you want a trail corridor, don't preserve the farm and then, or preserve the farm and leave an excluded area that would provide for a trail easement.
Kind of think ahead to me of what.
Yeah,
maybe-
yeah.
And of course,
The
you're supposed to
challenge is
identify.
thinking ahead in perpetuity.
Yeah. And then how do you place a trail or acquire land in a high density area, like the red areas of the map that would probably be north of the Turnpike in Upper Allen?
It can be very challenging. Normally, so another thing that the county has is a land partnerships grant program where you could potentially do like a trail feasibility study where if you want to get from point A to point B, look at all the available property owners in between there and see what might be the path of least resistance. But it can be challenging in an existing developed area to find space to put a new trail. Oftentimes you have to be creative. If you can co-locate with a sewer easement or a water easement or some place where there's already an extra little bit of space. I always encourage, to the extent that you can, don't defer sidewalks. Those sidewalk connections can be trail connections down the road. But yeah, it's a challenging situation.
And are the utilities becoming more cooperative, like a PPNL or a UGI or something in terms of an easement over their
Sometimes they
property
can
to
be.
connect?
We've worked with PPNL on the Cumberland Valley Rail Trail, and they see some advantage in that this corridor is always going to be open because there's a trail underneath it. So if they have to come in with a vehicle, that they're allowed to use the trail corridor also.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll turn it over to Silver Spring. It's up on the screen. And she can go. I don't know if everybody knows Vince is also a former county
Hello.
commissioner.
Here we go. All right, yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Vince DiFilippo. Some of you know me. I'm a former county commissioner. I served 2 terms. Prior to that, I was a township supervisor at Silver Spring Township. And tonight, we'll be answering some questions. With me is Frank Evelhoek, who is the president of our Silver Spring Township Land Preservation Board. And the presentation you see in front of you was given back in April to the Capital Area Council of Governments, of which Upper Allen is a part of, Silver Spring Township is a part of. Commissioners Martin and Fairchild were at that presentation. Back then, okay, you'll see here me and Laura Brown, who is current Silver Spring supervisor and current land preservation program coordinator. Okay, protecting land in Silver Spring Township. Why should we protect land? We have agriculture, we have natural resources, parks and rec, woodlands and open space. And how do you protect land? Well, you can try by zoning, but that's the least protective because we all know zoning can change. Deed restrictions are good, but they're not permanent. The best way to conserve a piece of property is through conservation easements. So what is a conservation easement? I know we went through this earlier, but it's a legal agreement between a landowner and a government or land trust or both. Place restrictions on the land, and the landowner gets paid for giving up his or her development rights. Ownership continues with the landowner, meaning with the easement, the landowner continues to own the property. Sometimes people ask the question, well, does the township own the property? No, it's the landowner. And that easement runs forever, meaning if the landowner sold the land, his property, her property, that easement would go with the property. Using conservation easements to preserve land, you can use private land trusts with which Silver Spring does primarily. We use Natural Lands, who are here tonight. We also use an outfit called Lancaster Farmland Trust, who are both organizations are outstanding. We've also partnered, as Stephanie has mentioned, with the County State Ag Conservation Easement Purchase Program. In Silver Spring Township, we have preserved about 1,400 acres, and we have more in the pipeline right now. And Commissioner Clark, you had asked a question, are these easements solely for farmland? With the county state program, yes, but with municipal programs, it can be farmland, it can be open space, it can be woodlands, it can be wetlands, and we've done quite a bit of each in Silver Spring Township. But we've also partnered with the county where we have preserved farms jointly with the county. And a lot of benefits come with that for both parties. It cuts our costs down for one thing. And those farms go into the county state program. There's also federal programs that we can take advantage of when their opportunity comes, when they have funding. And here we come down to our municipal land preservation program, which Silver Spring decided to do back in 2013. My only regret is that we didn't do it sooner. Back then, our referendum was voted upon in November 2013. We had a citizens group known as Preserve Silver Spring who organized a few months prior to that. And in June of 2013, this group approached the Silver Spring Township Board of Supervisors requesting that a referendum be placed on the ballot. And that was 6 months before the election, actually 5 months before the election. And the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved the request. Okay, this again was mentioned earlier. What gives municipal land or townships the opportunity to produce such programs? It's Act 153, the Open Space Lands Act, authorizes local governments to preserve, acquire, or hold land for open spaces. It's not only farmland, it can be woodlands and open space. I know we have several big tracts of woodlands in our township that have been preserved. All right, that's being cut. Can that be moved up somehow? Sorry. There we go. With the local preservation programs, they're a little bit more lenient as far as making exceptions. Like we have no minimum acreage in the program, permits local taxing options, bonds, EIT, or real estate. There are approximately 100 municipalities in Pennsylvania that have a local land preservation program, and about 80% of them use EIT. I know this may sound crazy, but it's probably the most fair way to tax to get revenue for this type of program. I mean, if I compare Silver Spring with Upper Allen, both townships are very healthy. Most people are employed. I think the unemployment rate is around 3% for this township. Poverty level is about 4%. So it's probably the best option to produce revenue. So what did we do in Silver Spring? Ballot referendum in 2013. Back then, and actually pretty recently, Silver Spring was the fastest growing township in the state, not just the county. And like I said, our biggest regret is we didn't do this sooner. But we passed the referendum. We increased our EIT by 0.1%. It was approved by a little over 60% of the voters. And that was in spite of a strong propaganda campaign by the Greater Harrisburg Association of Realtors and a couple of home builders associations. And they tried to scare our elderly, saying that, oh, you're going to have to pay more tax and this and that. I won't get into that, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. The money that's raised, it's dedicated solely for preserving land and any costs that go on with preserving that land. We have a land preservation review board. The chairman of that board here is Frank Evelhoek. I hope he'll make a few comments later. This board does really 99% of the work, reviewing applicants, reviewing the property. We actually go walk the property. We talk to the owners, and all these recommendations are brought to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors make the final decision whether we preserve or not. The road thus far, we've worked in partnership with Natural Lands, Lancaster Farm Land Trust, and the County Ag Conservation Easement Purchase Program. We've preserved 23 properties so far, almost 1,400 acres. I think we have a couple more coming up that will be settled in July. And I want to stress very strongly here, this is a voluntary program. We do not go out and twist people's arms to come to this program. They actually come to us. At the beginning, it was a little tough because it was new and people were a little bit leery. But once the process started, then we received more applications, and people who at first were a little leery said, hey, I want to do this too. So we make sure they are fully educated, knowing what the benefits and the pros and cons of preserving their property. And so far, the program is continuing to move pretty well. This map pretty much shows the programs, the local programs in Pennsylvania. You'll see there's a strong tendency in the eastern part of the state. Many of these programs, folks, have been in operation 25 years. That's how successful they have been. So why should municipalities pursue their own land preservation program? I think this has been talked a little bit tonight so far, but you preserve land for perpetuity. It's forever. You can create a balance of preservation and development. I can tell you back in the early 2000s, Silver Spring was just, developments were just being rubber stamped one right after another. But this program gives landowners a choice. This is an extra choice they have. Hey, if I don't want to sell my land to a developer, and if I want to preserve it, this is one way they can do it. The cost associated with the purchase of the land or easements are paid off in a relatively short time. And the cost of the community from residential development continues and usually increases over time. Now, what does that mean? If you take, say, a 100-acre farm and turn it into a housing development, the township will get revenue from that. Yeah, it will. But it also increases the cost to educate our children. There will be more students in school. And if any of you are familiar with how the state funds our education system, there is a continuous deficit from each student year after year after year. When you have a preserved land, it stays in the tax rolls, and these properties remain in private ownership for the most part. And I know it's hard to see up top, there's folks, but once a property is preserved, it requires little, if any, public money. So the steps to a successful referendum, this is critical here for my good friends in Upper Allen. Choose an election that will be best for a voter referendum. I'm sorry. Okay. Allow at least 9 months time to gather information, build coalitions, survey residents, etc. I think, Eric, you probably started on that timeline. And have a message. Our message in Silver Spring was simple: preserve Silver Spring. Just point out the benefits to the community and the potential cost savings. Organize a campaign committee, enlist volunteers. This is not easy work to get this passed, folks, because there will be some people out there just trying to pass on bad information. Find yourself a local champion. We did. It was the president of the Future Farmers of America that taught at Cumberland Valley High School. Prepare a timeline and schedule of tasks. Educate the public through public meetings, newsletters, articles to the press, and treat this referendum as a political campaign. Be prepared for the opposition. We were back in 2013. And I can't stress enough, folks, the time is now. You don't want to delay doing this. The little specifics that we're talking about here, that will work itself out really in the next 3 to 4 months. Once the supervisors in Silver Spring passed the approval to have the referendum, that's when we got to work. I mean, a lot of door knocking, a lot of workshops. And another thing too, I want to stress, we didn't use any consultants. We did this ourselves. We even wrote up our own referendum language. Now the township solicitor had to review it and make a few little, updates. But, we did most of this ourselves. It didn't really take up any staff time of the township. Now, once, everything passed and we got the program going, there was some time that the staff spends, but very little. Most of the time spent on working in our program is from the Land Preservation Review Board. Our success, we were well organized. We learned from municipalities that failed. We had a core group who did enormous campaigning. We had the full support of our township supervisors. There is absolutely no hesitation on their part. We did a big education campaign. We held a number of workshops at our fire companies just so people could come in, understand the program, and agree to it or not agree to it. Again, we were fully prepared for the opposition. The costs to do this were reasonable, and we have cooperation with Land Trust and the County Ag Preservation Board. They are our main reasons for success. Now, can you preserve land without a municipal land preservation program? Yeah. You'd have to set aside funds to preserve a specific property. You could work with the county program if it met their guidelines, or you can work with the land trust. A municipality, though, may need to have to be able to pay all the costs. Okay. Frank, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay. All right. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
Vince, I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, you have shared, you and Laura Brown and Frank, all the Silver Spring information from when they decided to do the referendum, all the ordinance language and so forth. And I believe you fully support the timeline we're on, that this is doable.
In my opinion, yes.
Thank you.
I think our entire Land Preservation Review Board feels the same way. Correct, Frank? The timing.
And one of the more important documents you had was creating the policies of the composition and the priorities, the policy of the Land Preservation Board. I mean, it's very, very helpful to see that document, which we'll share with our own residents shortly. But okay, thank you. Any other board member questions of Silver Spring? Okay.
I was just curious if you guys have any questions about the board itself or anything like that.
Just maybe how you attracted them. I mean, I think you had a sustained effort. You mentioned the FFA person from Cumberland Valley, the local champion, but maybe that radiated, more support, not that quarter. But it takes some dedicated people, I think, to join that board and go through the technicalities and make it function properly.
Right. What Silver Spring did was those of us that were interested in being members had to submit applications and, provide some background and whatever. And, yeah, the members have to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. And when we started, we staggered, the general term for each member is 3 years. But when we first started, we staggered that. We had a couple of people with 1 year, a couple with 2 years, and some with 3 years. But eventually everybody gets on a 3 year. So if you have more specific questions about the board, or how do we do this, how do we do that, or whatever, I'd be glad to answer those, or, even when folks from the public ask questions.
Sure, thank you. And I wanted staff to know they will have their opportunity to at some point if they wish to ask some questions. Michelle or Josh, our solicitor, or Keldine. Allison, Zach, anybody, from the staff at some point, but I think we're ready to turn it over to public comment. And I don't have a sign-in sheet per se. So I saw Jim Cochran come in earlier. If you're ready, Jim, you usually like to give a counterpoint sometimes. Would you be willing to go first? No? Okay. I saw a sitting county commissioner, Gene Foschi, who's also a Upper Allen resident. Would you wish to go first, Gene? Yeah.
So I was here last week, right? That was last week. Yeah, can you hear me?
Hit the green button on now. Yeah.
So, hi, everyone. I was here last week and I gave some public comment, and I'm going to reiterate that public comment one more time. We know that open space and outdoor recreation and a good environment really and truly helps people to live lives that they enjoy. It helps with mental health. We know this. Stephanie Williams from the county did an excellent job with her presentation. Again, Commissioner Vince DiFilippo and Frank are here. And so I don't know that there's anything more to say, but I would say this. You're already at no. So I think that getting this on the ballot quickly, a referendum on the ballot quickly, makes a lot of sense. And then the voters will decide, and then we live with it. I was looking at something that I think is so interesting about ballot referendums in this county. And this is about the library tax. The county collects a library tax, and that went to ballot referendum in 1986. And that passed with 52% of the vote. So county residents, 52% of them said, yes, indeed, we would like to have a millage rate to pay for libraries. And then a citizens group decided that they would go ahead and they would challenge that library tax. And that happened in 1987. And it went back to the ballot, and 56% of Cumberland County residents approved that library tax millage rate. So I think it's a good thing to do. I live here in Upper Allen. I love living here. I have heard so many members of the public talk about how much they would like to get some development under control. They'd like to have some balance. And I think this is a really nice opportunity to do this in a very fair way. And thanks.
Thank you. And I also wanted to recognize Josh Brown. Is he still here? If he wished to make a comment, he had done some right to know requests earlier that were informative to the commissioners, I think, but I'm not seeing Josh. And we also have Ed Franco from the Cumberland County Planning Commission. If you wouldn't mind speaking, Ed, then we can start going down the other list. Yeah. I don't think everybody's. I know.
Thank you. Just like Gene said, I don't really have anything to add, but Stephanie and I have worked together for over 20 years, and This concept is not a new one. It's one we've been talking about for 10 or 15 years. And it takes a lot of courage to put it on the ballot. But I think you're on the right track to let the voters decide. And I just would echo again, having been on the Planning Commission for the last 8 years, excuse me, and I was also on the steering committee for the Land Partnership new plan. There are many, many resources in this county in terms of nonprofits and professionals. Everybody is willing to help. So I think it's very important to not feel like you're doing this alone. There's a lot of resources, not just the county, but all those organizations that Stephanie mentioned are really here to help. So I encourage you to give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I may butcher her name. It looks like Janet Gerard.
I'm fine speaking now, but just thinking of it jumping ahead because it wasn't the first page that was filled in.
Oh,
Do you know
well,
what I mean?
I have 2 pages, one with a lot of names and one.
So, okay,
You're at the
all
top.
right. Okay, thank you. So I'm Janet Graaf. It's a Dutch name, originally from South Africa, more recently from Connecticut. So I'm very new here. I'm thrilled to see that you're paying attention to this issue. And as I listen to all these super presentations, I'm thinking, oh my God, just in time. And what you're proposing is just a start. I mean, I feel that if we really want to get a handle on that balance of environmental protection, quality of life issues, as well as all the development that you want for the taxes they bring in to support the running of the town and all that stuff, we probably need to draw on all the different sources of income, all the different partnerships. I would encourage you all to think big, not just this one referendum for this one source of income, but everything, please. And I too will volunteer to help make it work.
Ma'am, are you a township resident?
Oh, yes, yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
It would be helpful if speakers give us your name and address.
Oh,
Everyone
okay.
is welcome to speak, but it helps put in
Yeah,
context.
the address is
remarks.
Meadowview
Thank you.
Estates. Yeah, thank you.
But there's been a change in law. They're not actually required to give us your address anymore, but it does help with the record keeping.
I can still ask though.
You can, right. So, Brian Sanker, I know you're signed in, but do you want to speak, Brian?
He's a resident.
I am a resident. Thanks. I'm Brian Sanker. I live in the red part of the township that doesn't have any parks. So that's a really nice thing that I would like to see as part of this process. And when we come to things like the Maplewood Farm, that would be a great idea for some sort of preservation, although I'm concerned that it's owned by a development corporation. And so the idea of paying our taxpayer dollars to them at this point to not develop is that would not be my first method of trying to get that farm to not be developed. My real reason for coming is to say that that open space preservation is a great idea, but I do not believe we should do it through EIT. I think we should do it through a full property tax or bond referendum if we have our other choices. Those are the 3 choices. I don't think it's fair, Commissioner DiFilippo. It's not fair at all. It's in fact just on something borne by 8,000 of our residents of the 24,000 or so. So, and there, I think, and the majority of the commissioners wouldn't pay this tax. So it's something that I feel that if we're going to put this on the table for all of us to consider preserving all of the space in the township, we're looking at different properties. It's something that we should all have to share in this additional tax. And frankly, hopefully we would get more in revenue that way. But I think as you look at this, while there's time to consider it, please consider something more broad than just an EIT tax. Thank you.
Susan Pigot? Donna and Daniel Melton. Kent Strock.
Kent Strock, live along Williams Grove Road. If you looked at the map a while back, there was a small white area in the middle of all the green that happens to be my property. If you go back to the map, my mother preserved her 60 acres that she owned. We're surrounded by preserved land. Barry, Donald, Rupert, Kathy Stoner, all have preserved ground. I think you can verify that. I'm concerned about additional taxes. I know what my real estate taxes are currently. I know what my current income is. And I think real estate tax is one of the most unfair taxes that we have. So I would have to disagree with Brian that real estate would be the most equitable way to get funds for a preservation program. I had made some notes. Until food becomes scarce, profitability for farmers will be very difficult. I don't know if any of you have ever farmed. If I could ask Donald here, if you own 1 acre of land, how much do you think you generate off that if you're crop farming? What would your guess be? You own 1 acre of ground and you plant corn on that ground. How much do you generate in gross income? Does anybody have a guess? Well, how much do you think?
$1,000.
You lose.
Like
Yeah.
5.
Okay, a good yield of corn is about, what, 225 acres, 225 bushel to the acre? Right now, corn's going for about $4 a bushel.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your $1,000, that's pretty close. Now, what were your expenses on that $1,000 that is your income?
1,500, 2,000.
Donald, what do you think your expenses are in an acre of corn ground? 700, 800 probably? Yeah, $700 to $800 an acre. So you're netting $200 an acre if you're a farmer. How many acres do you think you have to farm to support a family if you're crop farming? You might as well have 1,000 acres, you might as well not farm. That's the bottom line. That's the reality of agriculture today. I think, Stephanie, you could probably verify that. Anybody that's crop farming knows it. Take a look at what has happened in this area recently. I'm thinking about Monroe Township. We didn't have any chicken houses in this area for years. Now, how many do we have? Todd Raybert has 3. Merv Rupert has 3. They weren't here 15 years ago. It's because they couldn't make money crop farming. They had to delve into animal agriculture. Just some thoughts. That's it. Thanks.
Donald Strock. Robin Banks.
Robin Banks in Grantham. I've lived here for 45 years, my husband 65 years. And man, has this township changed. For those people who haven't lived here for a long time, you have no idea. We now have warehouses. We took property that was residential. Our zoning turned it into commercial. What is it here? Market Street and Gettysburg Road used to be houses. Now we have Chick-fil-A, we have a gas station, and we have Penn State up on the corner. Down the road, Book of the Month. It used to only be Book of the Month. Now we have warehouses. If we don't do something for these people who haven't lived here and have children, your children are going to grow up in here with traffic, unbelievable traffic. Market Street, tractor trailers, it's terrible. Coming out of Chick-fil-A, And whenever they finish that up there, you're going to have another entrance and exit at the top of the crest of the hill. Who designed that? I can't even believe the township even allowed that design, but we need to do something. And as far as taxes go, you know, we're letting all these people come in, these builders and everything come in, make them pay a hefty tax. You have developers that are coming in and building, I'm going to use Oakwood Hills. Oakwood Hills has all of those people in there. Let them pay a hefty tax. It's a business to them. So let these businesses come in. If you're going to allow these businesses to come in and to build, let them, charge them. And as far as, I mean, I'm willing to pay extra taxes to keep this township underdeveloped and stop the developing. And I know it's going to be a hardship for some people. So in that case, let's think of another way of taxing these companies that are coming in, because there is land, there's still land to be developed. There's land up on Lisburn Road that is, who knows what's going to go in there. It's zoned commercial. It's been zoned commercial for years. It's owned by Oakwood Hills. One point in time, it was supposed to be a hotel, a convention center, a little cafe and a gas station. Nothing is happening yet, but it's not going to stay like that long. We know that. It will be developed. And this is where we have to stop giving people rezoning for commercial. Soon it'll be industrial, but we have to keep our property the way it is and keep our land for our children and keep the traffic down.
Can I just say really quickly I learned this and I thought it was fascinating, so I thought I would share it. In our ordinance, builders that come in and develop in Upper Allen do pay a fee. And that's how we've built a lot of the parks in Upper Allen Township. So that is something that commissioners before myself had the forethought to do. And I just didn't want that to go unnoticed.
Raise that fee because there is still land to be developed.
Absolutely. I just wanted to let you know that they did have the forethought to do that, and it's been successful for us. I agree. It's a good idea.
Well, I just wanted to make a quick comment, but I'll wait. No.
All right.
No, I want to go.
John, you're messing with me.
Hi, my name is Jo Bitzer, 607 Keswick Court. I would just like to thank the board and these wonderful speakers for such a great education session. I feel even more strongly that this is the time to do this. And I want to thank you for having this and for the staff too that's putting all the work into this. There has been a lot of argument about should this be on the ballot now or should it wait, that we are rushing this. And I don't believe that is the case. If you look at the voter data, if we want the maximum participation, it should be done in a gubernatorial year as opposed to a municipal primary. In 2022, the voter turnout was 73%. In the 2025 municipal election, it was only 49%. So if we want more people to participate, it should be done in an even year election. We definitely should not wait until 2027 during the primary. That is even lower turnout. And saying we should wait until 2027 because voters will be more informed or better informed, that's just a prediction. That is not established fact. You don't know if people are generally less interested in municipal elections. So you don't know if waiting till 2027 is really going to make any difference with people being more informed or not. I think there's some other reasons to move now. Land is easier and cheaper to preserve before development proposals arrive. Development pressure can spread beyond the host municipality. So the data center that's proposed for Monroe, there could be significant infrastructure things that need done. Maybe more housing is going to need done. And maybe that would move into Upper Allen. Development pressure is increasing, we know that. So preservation opportunities are time sensitive, and the township needs funding in place before our key properties are lost. Communities that wait until residents are already concerned about traffic, stormwater, and loss of open space often find fewer preservation options remain. We are all already worried about those things. So in my opinion, we have waited too long for this. We have had years of a board that has been pro-development, and I think it is time that we change that. Thank you.
Christine, is it Newman? John Constantine? Mike Onifray? Neil Shear? Nothing? Okay. Nikki Hutchison? Trevor Monk? I should have been a school teacher, maybe learned to decipher handwriting. Sean, no, that's Jean Foschi. She signed in. Lauren Livingston. No. Tina Prinz.
Hi, Tina Prinz, Upper Ellen resident in Country Estates. So I just got back my right to knows from Monroe, and we need to conserve, and we need to conserve now. What I was finding out from the attorney for PA Data Centers, he was looking at farms that were in conservation. He was asking questions, can they come out of conservation? What would that take? He was targeting 5 farms owned by one gentleman that would have been 400 acres. He said no. Thank God. He said no. But the attorney pushed the issue. He kept asking, talk to him. I want to talk to him. Set up a meeting. I want to talk to him. If we protect our land, we will not have data centers trying, because we will have that conservation. That will be our safeguard. He even said a few farmers say their land is in the conservation program, but I'm not seeing conservation easements on the land recorded. Maybe I am missing them. Can you look and see? We do not want you having to answer to these data centers for land that is not in conservation. The time's now to move. Thank you.
So that's all who signed in. We can do a raise. Anybody wants to raise their hand now to speak? I see
John wanted to speak too.
I'm good. I'm not gonna speak.
He's the joker in the deck. He'll keep coming back, I think.
By her.
Oh,
Why are you
Wait a minute.
listening to her now?
No.
all right. Christina Dryden, Tolman Street. Good evening, and thank you to the township and elected officials and volunteers for hosting this forum. I want to begin by saying that I support the goals behind this effort: preserving open space, protecting our streams and natural resources, and maintaining the character of Upper Allen Township, and objectives that we all should share. My concern is not about conservation itself. My concern is whether this particular approach, a tax increase, is the best and most equitable way to achieve that goal. I am a working Upper Allen resident who pays the EIT. Under this proposal, EIT taxpayers throughout the township would be asked to provide more than, or about $900,000 a year to purchase land from a very small amount of property owners. Before creating a new tax, I believe residents deserve a clear understanding of what they are receiving in return. How many acres will be preserved, which we've sort of heard about tonight. What is the estimated cost per acre, which someone said they didn't want to weigh in on. What properties are being considered? How will we measure the success over time? What other avenues have been attempted before considering a new tax? Why not update the 2013 Township Comprehensive Plan first before jumping into this process? I also believe that we should carefully examine alternatives before asking residents to pay more.
The township already possesses important zoning tools that they might be able to use to influence growth, protect sensitive areas, and guide development. While zoning might not provide the same level of permanence as a conservation easement, it is a reasonable ask whether these tools have been fully utilized before establishing a new tax-funded acquisition program. We should also consider the opportunity cost of this idea. Every dollar collected through a new tax is a dollar that cannot be used by families for their needs. It is a dollar unavailable for other township priorities. If we're asking residents to make the investment, we should be confident that is the most effective way and the use of our resources. Most importantly, I believe that conservation efforts should be accompanied by transparency, accountability, and a truly defined plan. Residents should know not only the vision, but the specific outcomes they can expect and benchmarks by which the plan will be executed. I believe Upper Island Township has a long tradition of responsible stewardship. I'm not a lifelong resident, but I've lived here long enough to see that people care. So we owe it to taxpayers to care about this. I encourage the township to consider pursuing conservation, but do it in a way that demonstrates clear value, fully explores any and all existing alternatives, and earns the confidence of the residents who will ultimately fund if a new tax is introduced. Thank you.
Raising hands. I see Paul or Barry. Okay.
Barry Strock, 815 Williams Grove Road. I'm way ahead of this board. We preserved in the beginning of 2000. I have a 106-acre farm. My relatives here have farms in preservation in the present conservation. I'm very much for the referendum. I want you to know that. I appreciate the supervisors and the panels that are involved. You did a very good job. I had 6 questions written down and they were all answered. So,
There you go.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. I saw you, Paul.
Paul Brenneman, 2020 Stumpstown Road. As I've said before, I'm all for the preservation, but I'm concerned, like I can see Kent's property, the Paul Strock estate, the big farmland. I'm all for that, but I'm not sure I understand if somebody lives along the Yellow Breaches and they have a 2 or 3 acre property, why should they be compensated if it's not going to be, how can it's not going to be developable if it's just a lot like that? I don't understand that. And are you folks with Natural Lands? Weren't these the consultants that backed out originally because of the time constraints? Wasn't that brought up at the last meeting? Is that yes or no?
Yeah, they're here tonight.
I understand they're here tonight. I'm just asking, were they the ones that backed out? Right? They said it was too quick. So now they've come on board again. Is that correct? That
this is probably going to be their last meeting. They've provided the data that we asked for, and they had.
But they're going to stay on
timeline.
Pardon?
They had some doubts about timeline, but
but so they're on board now for the duration. Is that?
No, I just said I believe tonight's probably, and Todd can answer that. Yeah.
No, it'd be easier, right?
Yeah, thanks. So Natural Lands, we never intended to kind of help run the campaign here just because it was kind of out of our territory. We've had a long-standing relationship with Silver Spring. We're completely supportive of seeing these things happen in Cumberland County. I was here a year ago. We did a panel at Dickinson for municipal officials about some of the work that we've done in Chester County and parts of Southeast Pennsylvania. My goal is for these types of efforts to partner with our local Central Pennsylvania Conservancy, the other local land trusts that are here, because we can't travel to, we can't travel west and do the work, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to. So it was never our intention to run the campaign. We do that in municipalities in Southeast Pennsylvania, but we're happy to get, the information and allow, the citizens here to make a decision. So that was the plan. Yes, we had concerns of the timeline. It was short. Everybody needed to be on board, and, we knew there were questions from the citizens and so we didn't want to frankly alter the decision or impact the decision. And so then, the council made the decision to have a listening session. And, I think it's valuable. It's valuable to get this input. We're happy to provide the information here tonight. But it was never our intention to run the campaign. That needs to be supported and run by local groups and local citizens here in the township.
Anybody else raising hands? I see Sharon or Epi. Are you?
Linda, she's already.
Oh, Linda's already up. Okay.
15 Williams Grove Road, Mechanicsburg. I'm all in favor of this conservation because we've already been in conservation programs with Stephanie. What I wanted to know was some of this stuff. Can any of this conservation theory be used to save what I call the horse farm on, is it Market Street, next to the Webercroft development that Triple Crown now owns and wants to turn into concrete? I don't know if any of this funding can be used to get rid of them, because I'm just all against that beautiful place being turned into a 60,000-foot warehouse of concrete. Is it too late for that place for this?
To me, that's a reason to act sooner rather than later that we have a program. I mean, they are owned by a developer, Triple Crown.
But if they had,
it's at the county court now on an appeal of a zoning board determination. So they, like a lot of landowners, would have that option. Is it worth continuing in court or, purchased by the township or conservation easement, sell to somebody else? It is zoned agriculture.
it is
And
zoned
it's
agriculture.
One of the few larger parcels north of the turnpike.
Because I've never understood how they get to do this on an agricultural parcel. Right. And I didn't know if some of this money would be an incentive for them to get out of here. That's just how I feel about that, to get out of here.
It gives them and us options, I think. Do you have
Okay.
a particular opinion, Ken, or?
Has Monroe Township been approached in any way that's where the data center's threatening to be? Has anyone, are they in the works of any of this at all to be do this conservation that would involve that land and not be a data center? I'm totally against data center and what we're doing to our earth. I don't know if Monroe Township has been approached.
I had asked Stephanie and you gave me an answer. It's pretty technical. I don't know. I'm aware like the Silver Spring jumped over and helped Hampton preserve helped East Pennsboro preserve their last farm. So I'm not quite sure how that came about or if we could, by having this program, be able to assist.
Because this is so close to us. That proposed data center is so close to our residents, and me is within 2 miles of my farm.
Sure.
If the property is in this conservation plan, is the final answer to a data center no? The data center can never access it once it's conserved, right? Because I would hope that. Alrighty. Thanks.
Thank you.
Linda, I was just going to comment that it's a little difficult. We're certainly aware of what's happening in Monroe and we've heard from our citizens. And I think we will have conversation to try to make sure that ancillary overrun won't affect our township. But in terms of zoning and conservation and how they allow the land to be used within their municipality is really a municipal decision. And it would be I think, inappropriate for us to portend that we have some kind of jurisdiction over them. We can certainly have a conversation, but it's their decision. Yeah.
Going back through, I did see Sharon before, or Epi, that's all.
Sharon and Jim.
Yeah.
Epi Rigney, 605 Lavina Drive. I basically have a question. What concerns me are the less than 10 acre properties that are included in the plan. If a less than 10 acre property is included, listening to what Stephanie said, can we somehow say that land that we're paying to use can be used by the public? Like you have to be able to let people walk through the property for a trail, or along the Yellow Breaches, I can put my canoe in that property? Or is it a way for people who have that 10 acres or 7 acres, just we pay the money and then it's land that the township residents don't benefit from? I don't know if the experts can, if you can put something in the
The Silver
stipulation.
Spring people can answer you best.
Oh, good.
Good question.
In regard to, can you put an easement on something that the public can use?
Close.
In regards to if you can put an easement on something that the public can use, the answer to that is yes. One of the questions on our application for people is, it's just a checkbox, but would you be willing to allow public access? And we haven't had a person yet out of 23 properties check yes. I think folks are concerned about in liability issues and things like that for other folks that come on their property and might get hurt or something. But it can be done. It can be written into the easement.
But something less than 10 acres should be way down the list, compared to
Yeah, it just
whatever,
depends.
unless it's really a strategic location somewhere. Yeah.
My concern is why should taxpayer money go to preserve someone's private land?
For their private enjoyment.
Yeah, that was my concern. Thank you.
That's a really good question, and I wanted to just give maybe a little bit more detail in my adding on to that question. I know we're looking a lot at the 10 plus acres, but there are going to be areas where we've talked about connecting parks. And there it might be more for a trail where obviously the only way that we would be able to include that property then is if it was useful for that purpose. Is that something that we would be able to use one of these easements for if we wanted to put a path through part of an area, maybe 5 acres worth of land, right? We would want to take. You have an answer. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, this is all good stuff and we could talk for hours. So I just wanted to start by saying the map, just to be clear, is not a plan. It was just a map that showed what was unprotected in the township above 10 acres. And then there were parcels that were less than 10 acres that might be important for other reasons besides size. So protection of the Yellow Breaches, for example, protection of, other waterways, possible trail connections, things like that. Those are all things that you'll have to decide as a township, should you have funding in place. What are your criteria? What are the things that are important? What are the properties that become most important? And it could be, as I said earlier, a mix of those things. Conservation easements can provide public access. They don't have to. Trail easements can be combined with conservation easement properties. And so what we typically do is, we work with appraised values. And so easements have value, trail easements have value, so to answer kind of an earlier question about how much, the answer is it depends on appraised value. And so a good appraiser can tell you, what's the value of the property? What's the value of the property encumbered with an easement? The difference is the value of the easement. And then that's what you're buying. the benefit to citizens can be public access. It can also be, you don't have public access, but the protection of that property is protecting the yellow breaches, which you do access in other places and things like that. So benefits are not always public access. They might be other things, but they can include public access. And so those are the things that the township decides, what's important for our open space program. And those are the criteria that help define the properties that you would go after.
And the last thing is that you can, we're talking about easements and easements and easements, but it's also, you can buy in fee as well. And so, small parcels along a recreationally important waterway could be purchased by the township to create a park at some point, if that was in line with the plans. Or canoe access, you could just get parcels only for access. There's lots of ways to go about it. So that's why we included that on there, because of the recreation side, or ecological value of those parcels.
I think one of the things will be interesting is, as a community, we have to kind of decide open space versus agriculture. We've used them interchangeably, and I think both are important. But, when we're talking 10 acres or 5 acres, that's a much different approach, or certainly it's not helping preserve farmland and agriculture. And I think Kent brought up an excellent point. We're talking hundreds of acres there, because to preserve 10 acres for agriculture, I think is kind of a joke. So I think we have to be very conscious in our conversation. Thanks for bringing up the acreage, Epi. And as we move forward, I would suggest that we have to focus, are we focusing on open space? Are we focusing on agriculture? And the requirements in the acreage are far different in those two approaches, I think. Funding can cover both types of projects. You have criteria that determine, right, if it's going to be a farm preservation project.
Okay. There's a lady in the back that's had her hand up for like 5 minutes continuously. So I think we owe it to her to hear what she has to say. Or her arm goes to sleep.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie, and I live on Grantham Road. This is my first time attending a meeting like this, and I just want to thank everyone, and also thank the folks that posted on social media so I could see that it was happening. We've heard so many good points, and I think I just wanted to, as somebody who rents, doesn't own, I've been in the area about 15 years, and I certainly don't make $130,000 a year to be able to contribute that 183 per year estimate, but would still happily give up a JoJo's Pizza a month to protect our lands. I think that while we might not all individually have access to the lands that are conserved or see direct individual benefit, I think that the community benefit to things like preventing flooding and preventing domestic species and providing wildlife refuge and cleaner air, cleaner water, all of those things, they're community benefits that while we might not individually say, oh, that piece of land that was only 3 acres was protected, but I don't have access to it. I think that when everybody that contributes their little bit, even those tiny parcels that might not be able to be used for agriculture or whatever else, are still immensely beneficial and worth it to the community, and that we see much bigger and much longer lasting, though less direct benefits from everybody doing their part. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just want to say two things regarding the farmland preservation, and I don't want to step on Stephanie's toes in any way, but the easements that the county puts on farmland are pretty rigid. Not a lot of flexibility. Some farmers might not like that. For example, Mervyn Rodabaugh. He originally was going through the county program. But he found out that he has two farms. The one farm, the house is, I don't know, 3 yards, 5 yards at the most off the road. And we're not talking about in town with a sidewalk. And he is thinking in the future, somebody might buy that farm and say, you know what? I would either like to move that house back or tear it down and move it to point X on the property. County can't do that. So we would have paired up with the county on that, but we ended up carrying the full freight because I'm working with Lancaster Foreign Land Trust. They don't have an issue about being able to move that house. So that's just one kind of small example of don't hang your hat on your farmers are going to go through the county ag program. And something else I wanted to say too, regarding the planning that was stressed. And I don't disagree or argue in any way with planning. And, you know, we'd like to target this area, that area, these properties are most important or whatever. But the thing you have to keep in mind is it's a voluntary program. So you can plan for the rest of your life that you want property X preserved. And if the property owner doesn't want to do it, it doesn't happen. And, you know, we, in our 13 years, have experienced that frustration where, wow, look at that property. Wouldn't that be great? Talk to the property owner, not interested. A couple other comments. Someone earlier was pointing out, I think it might have been Kyle, I'm not sure, how over time some property owners, their opinions, their thoughts, their feelings change. One example of a property we're working on right now, when Supervisor Brown first ran for election, some of us folks from the Land Preservation Board would go along with her door to door. And she always would take advantage of, if it was a nice property or something, well, you know, we have a land preservation program. Would you maybe be interested in that? One particular person, no, I would never do that. So that was probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Well, last year we had an application. I want to preserve my property. People, you know, they get older and they start to think about, you know what, I'm not going to be here forever. And boy, look at my property. I don't want 16 and 40 houses on it. You just got to be patient sometime. And one other thing I'd like to point out is we've had one person do this. Property owners can donate their easement, which means all you guys would have to pay for were the surveys and things like that, but you wouldn't have to come up with money for the easement. So, and that's another thing that we have on our application. Would you be open to donating your easement? Like I said, one person so far, but.
Thank you. Okay. Any more hands? The lady, Deborah, right?
Deborah Stafford, I am a resident. I just had a question. If there's going to be some kind of a group that, such as Silver Springs Township talked about, they developed a group first and went to the Board of Commissioners, whereas this is coming from the Board of Commissioners. And I know when you voted to hire the two companies, that it was sort of explained that they were going to be the ones that were kind of going to come up with the plan and help speak to the community and that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be, I know not all the specifics, but kind of a guideline as to what your priorities are. What are the priorities of what type of land that will be the first to be considered, and what uses and that type of thing? Is there going to be some kind of planning done prior to the vote, or is that all going to be waiting until after the referendum to see if it happens? Because I, for one, would just like to know, what are you planning on doing with it? What is the hope for the money?
I would start with what Silver Spring has done. They had a whole policy, how to form the board, who to appoint, how to prioritize the land,
But will that be before the referendum? So that is there going to be a committee getting together anytime soon to kind of look at, if we do this, what are the priorities going to be? What should we do? Or is this going to come after the fact? Theirs was before the fact, and we keep kind of using them as the template of how to do this.
There's actually, I think, came after the fact, but they were thinking about it. I take their
Okay.
point that we should think about that.
Well, I just assumed when they said they presented, they didn't just say, hey, we'd like to preserve land, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what happened. And I thought that's what these two companies were doing as well, is getting information from the community and what does the community want, and going to kind of come forward with, this is sort of where we would be going forward with this prior to a referendum, so that once we'd have the days between August and the election to kind of hear what the plan was, so that when you went and voted, you kind of had an idea of what's going to be going forward. Not just that, hey, these are all the possibilities, and we don't really know what is going to happen once it's voted.
Anybody have a response for Deborah? Oh. So does Todd, but okay.
No, use your
She's
mic.
getting it for both sides.
Use your mic.
Back in 2013, when we did this in Silver Spring, the specifics you're talking about, man, we did not do that till after the fact, after the vote, or after in this case, the commissioners would approve the ballot question. All right, after that is when everything got in line, so to speak. And then I want you to, but you need to know this too. Assuming you a referendum on the ballot, assuming it passes, you folks still have to pass an ordinance enacting that tax. So come November election, if the referendum passes, the day after, you don't start the process. It'll be a few months after the fact. Okay. All those specifics, I can guarantee you, will be worked out because we did it.
We just wouldn't know in advance.
Well, the ballot question is, correct. But it's simply the voters are being asked to approve an increase in whatever tax it is. EIT, in my opinion, is by far the most reasonable to use for conservation easements, purchase of land for preservation. It's that simple. The specifics will work out later. Thank you.
And I was just going to add, so there is some good information collection happening through a local consultant. Grow Conservation is doing work with focus groups and that kind of thing now to gather some of the information that would help inform what are the important purposes that would go into that question. But then, I was going to reiterate the same thing that Vince is. Typically, if it's a township that we're working with, looking at developing the criteria, setting up the open space committee, and the things that the specifics about which properties and those kind of things, that all would happen after the referendum passes. and that there's funding. But it would include, additional public input and things like that. And so, it's phased in terms of what can be gathered when, leading up to the question on the ballot and then the work that happens afterwards, to put the plan in place.
But there's no requirement afterwards to necessarily consult the public after that. I mean, you'll have a committee and whoever gets on the committee can make recommendations. And then it would just be like coming to the Board of Commissioners meetings to make public comment, I'm assuming. Because I know there's some people that are all for like agriculture, but not as much for some of the smaller parcels and that sort of thing. So this would just be passing it, carte blanche, whatever ended up happening. And then when the committee came to the Board of Commissioners to present something, I guess that would be the time that residents could comment about their views. Am I understanding that correctly?
Or they could volunteer to be on the committee too.
Well, no, understood, but not everybody's going to be on the
influence.
committee, so that's all I mean. Okay, thank you.
And I was just going to say, I know we had talked previously about some of this being part of the comprehensive plan that we already have in place, as well as being part of the comprehensive plan that we'll be working on in the future, and all of that kind of dovetailing together. So I think there will be more opportunity for community input, both at that higher level as well as at this more detailed level.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And open space plans often also inform that later process and selection criteria that townships adopt. I would just say that it is a requirement, though, in the enabling legislation that before the township can use any of the open space revenue, they have to pass by ordinance or resolution the process that would be followed for using those funds. It's required.
Let's go to the gentleman in the back.
Hi, Joseph, DRC, live in Winding Hills. I had a question about that map, but first I wanted to say I was actually a taxpayer and resident in Silver Spring Township in 2013, and I voted in the referendum. I'm not going to tell you how I voted, but it was needed. I grew up in an area surrounded by farms, and now my parents currently surrounded by housing developments. But I also want to make everyone's expectations. You're not going to get every piece of land you want. Just look at the Carlisle Pike, Costco, hemp farms. That would have been a nice piece of land. It's being developed into warehouses right now. So just keep your expectations low and be surprised. So I also want to say my great grandfather, when he passed, the children sold their land to Lower Allen Township, which is now Lower Allen Community Park. And I think that was a great investment by Lower Allen at the time. So I'm very familiar with land preservation. Fern Lawn was our family reunion grounds. So I just want to say on the map, I see the yellow area. Winding Hills is included in that. That land is owned by Winding Hills Master Association. Would a homeowners association be able to participate in this process? Or is this just a draft map and it's not eligible?
I would think so, but I would think homeowners association would want to protect it, or you have like deed restrictions setting up the association that it's supposed to remain community land, but the experts can answer.
I'm just the homeowner. I'm not on the board. I'm just asking the question. It's marked as an opportunity. So I'm just questioning if our HOA board was to decide to participate and it was allowed, could our homeowners association get money from the township?
Yeah, I think Todd.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. Sometimes homeowners association properties are already they already have deed restrictions and things like that. Those kind of things all impact the appraised value of the property in terms of how developable it is. So it might not be very high value. But homeowners associations can choose to work with a township or a land trust and do a conservation easement. That can include public access and trails, or it may not, but the answer is yes, they can.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Great. Other hands? One more, then we'll get back to you, Frank. Sharon. Yeah.
Sharon Howard, 2479 Glyme Drive. First and foremost, anyone who knows me, I love our farmers, so I know our farmers are well represented here tonight. Thank you for everything you do. When I hear those tractors running at 10 o'clock at night and 4 in the morning, God bless them. So thank you. I am in full support of land preservation. I do have a couple questions. First question to Stephanie. You made a comment, and I can't remember how much farmland was already preserved in Upper Allen. Was it 500 acres?
Almost 500, 482.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. So would that land be exempt from this, what we're doing tonight?
It's already protected.
Okay. So then the number you said, Eric, at the beginning, I think you said 1,500 acres. Is that 1,500 inclusive
No,
of that 500?
no, it's in addition.
In addition to, okay. I just wanted clarification on that. The other item I'm a little confused on is when this was presented 2 commissioner meetings ago or 3, can't recall. It was presented, at least my understanding was there would be 2 companies working together. These folks here and then Grow Conservation. And when the vote took place, I felt, correct me if I'm wrong, that the vote that was taken put those 2 companies under contract to work on this. But what I'm hearing from these folks tonight is they're short-term, they're not really committed to the project. So can I get clarification from the board on, did I miss something? Was something misinterpreted by me? What I'm hearing tonight is different than what I heard when the vote took place 2 or 3 meetings ago.
I don't believe they'll fully participate through the process, but you also probably won't get fully paid the original contract amount. But they can answer.
Well, again, our contract was not to run a campaign for the referendum. That was never the intention. We were working on the initial feasibility research, which is the taxing information, the map. And we wanted to help with the ballot question information, which is some of the information that is coming out of the Grow Conservation public engagement process. And so that's the piece that remains, is figuring out exactly what that language looks like.
Okay. That's a little different tonight than what I remember from a couple weeks ago. Thank you.
I think you're correct that they probably won't fulfill the full intent of scope of work as originally perceived, because some dynamics happened since that. And I'm not sure the continuing relationship between Grow Conservation and this group, but someone will figure it out. But it has changed, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. And again, I support the land preservation. Could I say it should be on the ballot in November? I don't think we have enough details yet. I don't think we're there yet. I'd like to see more information, how many exact properties are, potential, what the true tax cost would be, what the, cost per acre would be. I think there's a lot more detail that needs to come to the surface. If it's there and prepared by November, great. If not, extending it further, I could see that happening as well. But I am in support of the whole thing going forward. The timeline, I'm just not sure about. Thank you.
I believe Grow Conservation is having the last focus group on June the 24th. So we will know pretty shortly the outcome of the focus groups.
I expected them to be present tonight, so I'm a little bit, maybe I just don't understand the players and their roles, but I thought they would be here as well.
I just don't believe they're ready to report. That's all. They still have one more group. I think they want to be comprehensive. And
It would have been great, though, if they were present to at least be here and have a presence in the room, even if they weren't ready for a formal presentation.
okay, thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate what you're saying about the timeline, but I had some of the same reservations that you do. I was really interested in hearing from Silver Spring Township that some of those details were ironed out post referendum. And I think that we have to understand that the deadline to get the question on the ballot might be August, but it sounds like we're still going to be able to be working on some of those questions that you have between August and November and informing voters during that time as well. So I just appreciated learning that tonight because like I said, I shared your concern about timelines too. I was starting to feel a little bit anxious.
Well, the night of the vote, there was concern amongst the board. So, and I understand that. The only thing is, if you rush it and you don't get buy-in from the voters, the referendum will fail regardless. So I think it just has to be done and done right to get the outcome that you're all hoping for, and me as well. Land preservation, I moved here in 1994 from a very rural western Pennsylvania, and this is not what we moved into. And in that amount of time, it's changed drastically. So hate to see it go further. So thank you.
If I could add, Grove Conservation is here this evening, but strictly from an observation standpoint. They were not part of the program as a participant this evening on the panel. Okay? We can do that.
Yep. You want to?
Can we have Ryan? Could you stand up?
You are indeed here.
Ryan Zook is Grove Conservation. He is conducting the focus groups at this time. So he's in the middle of that process. Yes.
And Keldine, or I had somebody, or maybe Alexis, how are we going to present the information on the website? Like a lot of information was put up today under the packet. When you look at Board of Commissioners agenda, for this meeting, then you see packet. That's where a lot of like the Silver Spring presentation, the natural lands information will be there. We know like the Grove Conservation information is coming. Well, we're done with the packet tonight. I mean, I think we get back maybe needing a special category on the website, like.
We posted what we received. It is on under agenda for this evening. We were instructed to post the packet of all of the information that we received from a variety of sources. So it is a mix of information, and it is posted on the website.
Under the packet, just.
Correct.
Then it seemed, I thought before we were going to have a separate category for land preservation, just to consolidate all the materials in one place. I mean, we should still look at that, I would think.
We can work on website design if you'd like to create something specific, a separate page or something.
Yeah, something like that. I know
We'll get
it's hard
right
to work
on
with
that.
websites, they have a mind of their own. But it's like Deborah asked, for the Silver Spring, their policy or how they organize the committee. I mean, we have that, but it's just not on the township website. So the sooner you see that, I think that might allay some concerns, and I think Silver Spring did a fine job, organizing themselves. Right.
You're clearly not doing it exactly the way they did it. So it's like.
Right. But they can like serve as a model, I think. I think when you see it, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any other hands? I see Jim. Okay.
Jim Cochran, 384 Ellison Avenue. I want to thank the commissioners for holding this information session. While some of the material is new, some of it repeats what was shared at the previous Board of Commissioners meeting, but I want to put a number into perspective tonight, and that number is 15,026. Anybody know what that is? Joe? I expect you to know that. Registered voters in Upper Allen Township, 15,000, thank you, I thought you would, 15,026. So that's the exact number of registered voters in Upper Allen Township following May's primary. These are the people who may be asked to vote on a tax referendum this fall. Yet looking around this room, it's fair to wonder if even 1 or 2% of them even know this meeting's happening, because you have less than 0.5% here tonight. If tonight's attendance is any indicator, the vast majority of those 15,026 are likely unaware of what's going on. I had several crucial unanswered questions that I believe deserve answers before this moves forward. I waited to the end because I thought other people might have them, and in fact, they did. One of them was how much revenue does 0.1% increase in earned income tax actually generate? And Eric, that's not 5% increase, that's a 20% increase because we only get 0.5%.
On our share.
Our share is 0.5%. If we go to 6, that's a 20%.
I mean, that's originally how I looked at the revenue.
I think you said
5.9 is going from
20% increase on earned income tax in Upper Island Township. I had residents paying about $7,300 based on information I got from the tax bureau. So I'm not sure where you got your numbers from, but we're pretty close. But given those numbers, if you were to go out and borrow $3.5–4 million, use the earned income tax to amortize that, you could pay it off in less than 10 years, and you could buy Maplewood Farms and the Banzoff property. We'd have 2 new parks that everybody would have access to, not just a few people getting money for their own properties that you get to look at, but you can't really make use of. So I wanted to know what the minimum acreage required for a landowner to participate in would be, and it appears that depends on what you guys decide, that it can go clear down to 5 acres. So again, a multi-million-dollar house sitting on a 5-acre or 10-acre lot in Ford Farms or Allendale could qualify. It's close to the Yellow Breaches. It's 10 acres.
We never looked at 5 acres. I think the Natural Lands looked at it along the creek.
Well, when I saw some of the acres over there or some of the boxes.
It's only conservation land.
And those smaller parcels are undeveloped parcels that if the township decides it's important to protect that riparian area, they would be potentially worth protecting.
But a 10-acre lot with a house on it is still in that calculation for the number of acres that could be preserved.
No.
Not on that map. Also, I mean, the conservation opportunities map is not a which land should you put an easement on.
I know, it's a possibility. And Eric said a couple of times that he got his acreage from the tax mapper.
The property mapper. Yeah.
And how did you do that? I've asked the county if you can do that, and they say you can't.
I just manually went around, looked at all the parcels, and you click on them and it tells you how many acres. And I sorted them by highest acreage to the lowest acreage. I stopped at 15 acres.
Okay.
You know, now we're looking at 10. I never went down to 5. I mean, that's an exercise.
I wonder what guidelines
above are open. They don't have houses on them.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder what guidelines would be used to determine if a property meets farmland or scenic preservation definitions. And I think I'm hearing you got to pass it to find out what's in it. And I think I heard that once before from somebody, and we won't know till after it's passed. Then you'll decide what happens. We don't know what the maximum dollar amount per acre the program will pay any property owner. That's going to be I had some questions asked of me, so I'm going to keep going. Will public funds be used to pay farm landowners for acreage that is already preserved? You say no, that they won't get any more. They're done. That's a shame. Other municipalities took significantly longer and engaged in a more inclusive style, 9 months prior to for Silver Springs. And I'm not sure how you propose to ensure true transparency in such an abbreviated and rushed timeline. Now, on May 15th, you handed out, Eric, the proposal from Natural Lands, and it said Natural Lands proposes broader open space referendum planning, consulting, including ordinance and ballot language support, revenue analysis, public education materials, conservation mapping. That doesn't sound like a little temporary upfront engagement. I still don't know what happened. And it doesn't make sense to me that you guys were in here for $15,000 to do all this, and now you're done.
Well, so most of those pieces that are in there have been provided to the township for their review, and they'll be finalized as part of this process. We've had some initial conversations with the township, and we had feedback from some of those early public meetings that led us to believe that there was enough concern that this process maybe needed to be drawn out longer and discussed further, which is why we registered our concerns about it. And so we are We are anticipating getting, you know, every deliverable that we can get delivered to the township. We're not planning to be engaged, nor were we ever planning to be engaged into the next phase, which would be the campaign.
Okay, so the public comment made at the last board meeting that we were going to have to get the solicitor involved to get you to fulfill your contract. That didn't take place.
Oh, I wasn't here. I don't know what that public comment was.
This isn't as a result of our solicitor asking you to fulfill your contract.
Well, we were asked to come here tonight but this was never part of our initial contract to have this listening session.
Okay. In closing, I want to remind the board that County Commissioner Fashi cautioned you at your last meeting regarding passing resolutions without proper review, and you can see it on the tape. I believe that applies to public referendums too. I firmly support public referendums, but only when the community is given clear, complete, and timely information on which to base their vote. Given the aggressive push to force this onto the November ballot, I just don't see that happening here. Thank you.
Lady in the back.
Hi, my name is Susan Vanek. I live in Meadowview Estates. I would like to say that I think that this is a good time for the referendum. And I think that that's based on two things. Number one, I think there's a lot of concern and fear in the community right now because of the Monroe Data Center. And I think that the recognition of the risks of if we don't put some land in trust, and I understand that it's not straightforward, but I think that that makes this a viable time to go forward because I think people are paying attention. And I also think that there's been a lot of frustration on the part of Upper Ellen residents. We've heard some of that tonight at the overbuilding that has taken place in this county. And I mean, we now have schools that are equal to the size of CV, which I think is not what most people move to Upper Ellen for. And I was one of the residents that was in the I think one of the largest meetings on the Chick-fil-A. And some of you were on the board at that time, and there are other people here where there were many, many residents against it. And there was 30 seconds in which we were completely dismissed and said that it was a done deal and the vote was taken. And we were basically had our thumbed their noses at us. And I think that there's a lot of concern that we don't want that to happen again. And so we're trying to get in on the forefront, and now we're being told we should wait longer. And I don't think we should wait longer. I think that this is the time to move forward with this. We're in on the ground floor, and that we should take heed of what's happening in Monroe and start to move forward because I think that there's momentum at this time in the community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. All right, Frank, there. I think they want to kick the hook and drag you off the stage, but
make this as quick as possible. Several people have mentioned that they would like to get some idea from you folks of what price per acre for the properties that you're looking to pay or whatever. Man, good luck with that. But all I can tell you is in Silver Spring Township, we've had properties appraised at from $3,000 each up to $15,000. So how you predict in a range like that, what you think your typical price per acre is going to be, I can't help you with that. I'm just telling you that's the range we've seen thus far. One other thing, and hopefully Todd or Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I'm reasonably sure that if your referendum passes, you have to keep it in place for at least 5 years. If it fails, you can't try again for 5 years. Is that correct, gentlemen?
I don't recall seeing that. in the-
It is true that. It is true that, um, uh, yes, the referendum stays in place for 5 years, and if you want to change it, you can have another referendum after 5 years to rescind the open space referendum. I'm not sure about that you're only allowed to do it once every 5 years. That may be accurate. I'm just.
It was never worded that way that I saw, or could you? Right, same here.
You know, I'm not.
But it's a good point, Frank.
But I mean,
it's-
I've read Act 153 and I'm just kind of relying on my memory.
Okay.
So I'm at least half right.
Well, I mean, there's, the political thing, if it fails, then there's a stigma or something. And I don't think you would want to come back anytime soon, probably. Okay.
That's it.
And Josh, you did propose some questions for us to ask. Well, now he's looking at the ordinance, but we'll go to Michelle or somebody. Hope she's looking at something else. Did you have any questions or insight into this? Michelle's our new Director of Community Development. And
Thank you. I'm just delighted that we're even having this conversation. I think that someone talked about this being a brave matter to even approach this. You have a lot going on in the township. You have development pressure. You have concerned citizens. You have supportive board. You have supportive citizens. And really and you have the support of the county. And I think it's really the will of the voters who will determine, and the board ultimately, who will determine how this moves forward. As staff, I'm proud to be a part of the fact that you're even, having this conversation. So, thank you.
you had proposed like 10 questions or something a month or so, Josh, ago. And I didn't know if we hit on most of them or not. If you had, or if any arose tonight that you wanted clarification.
No, there was nothing. I have more questions about the post, if the referendum passes, how whether we would use the land trust or whether we would, how that's going to work, but we're not going to resolve that this evening.
Alrighty, I think. Oh, okay.
Oh, you're both there.
For completeness, Eric Waining, Meadowview. Just one last thought. Those that think it's too rushed, you should be thrilled. If it's too rushed, it's going to fail. As Gene said before, the no is here. If there's truly that many residents passionate about this, they will work on it. They will root for it. They will vote. The no's have it. The yeas are to gain. Thank you.
Any closing thought from our panelists? All right. I think we're adjourned. Thank you for all coming out.